Hello! We're thinking spring again with our art lessons. So last month we used oil pastels and purple watercolor dye to do a forest with birch trees. And we're going to continue this month with oil pastels and violet watercolor dye to do this adorable baby deer with a purple watercolor wash on the oil pastels. So I'm really looking forward to doing this with you. And let's get started. As we look at this picture, here are some things I'd like for you to think about. And these are the topics that I'm hoping to cover in this lesson. One of them being, you have this baby deer. We don't know for sure if he's standing or laying down. We're not sure what's going on here. And that's okay, because what we're covering on this one is when you have a picture that's full of something. So like, in this case, lots of grasses and a baby deer. How do you show space without having to draw everything? So I don't have to draw all his legs. I don't have to draw every single blade of grass. So we're going to use color and patterns to give us a sense of space. So we have these lovely colors, the light greens, the yellows, the oranges, that we used last time with the violet ink, because they just really pop when you put the violet ink on there. And we're going to use dark colors to show distance or shading in kind of a space. And we're going to use patterns to show space. So I'm excited about that. And first off, all we need is a pencil and an eraser, and then we're going to trace with Sharpie, and then we'll use oil pastels, and then we'll use watercolor dye. All right, it's going to be great. Here's my 8x10 piece of paper, and I've chopped it in half this way and that way, and I've very lightly drawn a big plus sign. We learned back in our cherub lesson that having a grid that is measured pretty closely is how you can get accurate proportions. So that's kind of important to us. And it's not so complicated to do this baby deer as it is doing a human face like a cherub, but it is helpful, especially on this video way, so that you know that your 8x10 piece of paper has 4 rectangles the same size as mine. The only thing I would like to encourage you though, when you're drawing this plus sign, since you know you're going to erase it for sure later, don't press with all your might, because then it'll create grooves in this watercolor paper, and then it will be really hard to erase. And even after you erase it, you might get something called ghost lines showing up in your oil pastel later. So super gently when you draw it so you can erase it later. And we're going to look right at the very center of our picture, because that is where we're going to start with our fawn or baby deer's mouth. And it's just going to be a minus sign at first that's right there in the middle. And I'm trying to have equal amount on this side and that side so that it makes sense as a mouth. And then we'll be able to use this line because the deer's face is quite symmetrical. So we can use symmetry to help us draw both sides. It's not exactly symmetrical, so don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect. Please, no, not perfect, because then that just makes this hard and not much fun. And I want you to have fun. So remember, it's just practice. It doesn't have to be perfect. And it's much better to do something than to like not do something and worry about it being perfect. All right, so we're gonna erase just below that little line so that you can see where it is. And I'm gonna erase to the right and the left of that little line so you can see where it is. But I'm gonna hang on to the line going up. So those helping lines didn't last very long, did they? And if I put my finger on there, I would say that my finger is about the width of that line. Like if I go up, you can't see it. So I don't want it to be super wide. That seems about perfect. Then we're going to put our little deer's chin on. So the chin will go right under that and just kind of looks like a letter U. There's his little white chin, or her little white chin. I cannot tell from looking at a baby deer's face if it is a boy or a girl. And then we're going to have its little mouth. It's going to kind of go at an angle back, which is funny because it kind of makes it look like it's smiling, but it's mostly because they have a long face that comes forward. So it's kind of flat in the front where its little teeth are to eat grasses, and then it goes back on its little muzzle. So that's how you get that shape. And then we're gonna put a line up on the side, a line here and a line there for the width of that front part of the nose. And you notice it's not where the flat part is. It's kind of like where this little part sticks out. I'm not a deer, but I keep touching my face because I can relate. There's no one here, so I can touch my face. I just wash my hands and I'm not around people, so it'll be good. And then we're gonna draw the other part of its nose, which goes right above. So we have, it's gonna be a little bit pointy, kind of like the roof of a house, and it's going to come down in that little space, and it's really shaped kind of like a house. All right, I'm going to try to get a little bit more symmetry on that right hand side, so I'm going to move that over a tiny bit so I have that space like that. All right, so that looks nothing like a deer. I know it kind of looks like a snowman with stick arms. And that could just be because we had a lot of snow this winter and it left a strong impression on me. But we're coming to spring, yay! When I do in-person classes, the person that sits on the back row inevitably draws the smallest because they're farthest away. And the people on the front row draw the largest because they're close up. And so it's very tricky to draw something the accurate size while I'm standing up here doing this. And so hopefully it'll help a little bit when I compare things like my finger and stuff. But all that is to say, on this picture, it is best if your deer's face is a little bit larger, because if it's super tiny, then you're going to have to draw a ton more grass. And I'd say a picture full of grass is not quite as interesting as a portrait of a baby deer. So you're going to go a little on the large side. And now we're going to put some nostrils. And the nostrils go on the side and kind of look like evil eyebrows on my snowman. So it's kind of going this way. Or like black socks. Because the nostrils go around the side. Kind of like if you have a dog, you've noticed there's like this part over here that can smell, not just that part there. All right, so we've got that. And then we're going to go up a ways for the eyes. So this line that's over here, we're going to go up and draw another line there. And, whoop, you know what? That might be too tall. Let me measure and see. Okay, so here's my line. Oh yeah, it is more than too tall. So I'm going to put it right here instead. So I got my finger right here. All right, so I almost made a baby deer named Goliath, but I think I've recovered. And I'm using my line to help me with symmetry. So left and right. Okay, and yay, that's good. I've got a little bit wider than my finger there, a little bit wider than my finger there. And then how much higher is my head gonna be? 2 fingers up. All right, so 2 fingers up. And that is gonna be the top of my head. All right. It looks really tall, but remember, their brains fit from your eyes up. So your optic nerves go straight into your frontal lobe, into your brain. And then all of this is like sinuses and stuff. So your brain is from here up. So you gotta have room for your brain, even if you're a baby deer. And so that's what that's about. Okay. And this deer's face is more of an oval shape, but almost has a rectangle shape because you got like strong verticals and strong horizontals. So we're gonna get those on. So we're gonna go over a ways and put another vertical and another vertical over there. So that's how wide my face is gonna be. And then I can go from here, right below the little mouth to the little chin. And from here, right below the little mouth to the chin. So that's super cute. And then up here, it's gonna go over and down, over and down. And I bet you thought we were gonna connect it to that other line. The only reason we're not is because his ears are going to go there. So it's got more than one kind of level in that spot. So instead, his ears are going to go in a slightly different way. So this one's going to kind of curve up behind. So we have space for those ears to go on. So it really, now it looks like an upside down jug of milk to me. I don't know. So I like to compare it to things that I know about, because then it was like, oh, okay. So if you can compare it to something that you know that's easier to draw, it will help you draw things. So, but I'm not sure how an upside down jug of milk would be easier to draw. Okay, so I'll go back to my ears. So right here, I need a diagonal going out like this, and a diagonal going out like that, so that I have those places where the folded up ears are gonna go. And then we get to put the cute baby deer eyes on. So I think we've talked in our meetups before about how eyes on babies are their full-grown size when they're born, because of these structures, they don't continue to grow. And that's why babies are super cute, and they've got giant eyes, and it makes us want to take care of them. Let's face it, it works. They're cute. So our baby deer is going to have large, adorable eyes. We've got our lines. We've got this space over here, which is about the size as my finger, which was, yep, okay, my finger's really getting involved on measuring today. So we're going to have a curve. It mostly just goes over, but it's a little bit like a letter R, like a lowercase letter R. And it goes over, and we're going to give it like this cute little Bambi lash that kind of comes up. So over and up. All right, so when you do that, if your R comes down too far, it's going to, let's see, down too far. That's going to look sad, okay? And if your R goes up, that's going to look angry. So you want to kind of have this pretty little swoop kind of thing, because that's just adorable. Then we're going to put a letter U for our highlight, and a bigger letter U for our pupil, and then an even bigger letter U for the color brown. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, like an upside down rainbow. And right now it looks kind of dizzying, but here, I'll color this part so that you can kind of see what's going on. This is the black part. Okay, so that's what's happening. So we're going to have little letter U, a little bit bigger letter U, and an even bigger one. And this part gets colored. All right, those are going to be adorable eyes. Next, the neck. So we're going to draw a little line here for a little bit of a furry neck color, and then so we got, it looks like a little neck, like a person neck, and then it comes a little wider. So we're going to go over here and down, and here and down, because we've got the light color fur, the darker color fur, and then the body's going to go this way. So we've got that twisty, let's see, my neck did a twisty thing right there. So happens with deers too. So we're going to have like a line that goes like this for twisting. And then we're going to head for up here. So we're going to start right above this, right kind of like where our line is actually. That's kind of cool. And go down below the line and up above the line. And that's where the back goes off in space. And I can erase this whole helping line now on this side. Actually, for the other side, we just need a little bit more to the line on the front. And so it's going to kind of bulge out slightly and stop. So you don't want to keep going down, because we're going to put this lush thickness of grasses down there to kind of conceal the rest of the baby deer's body. And then we're going to put a little curve right above for cute little brow bones. So imagine like your brow bones up here, the light hits those areas right there on us and on the deer, and it exists because this bone protects the soft tissue of our eye from if someone throws something at us, and it hits there and our eyes are protected. So, and I guess if we're just awkward and run into tree branches, so this deer's eye is safe because of that brow bone. Okay, we've got that. And now we're going to put another diagonal here and another diagonal there. and yet another diagonal here, and another diagonal there. There's 3 parts to where it comes out of the ear because of how it's folded, and that makes it super interesting. So I've got this one, and this one, and this one, and we're ready now. Okay, so here I go. We want the ears to go at an angle and kind of go up. So I'm gonna start about here and curve, 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 and go up to here and then come back and go inside. All right, so you notice there were 3 lines. I started at the middle one, I went up and out, and then I came back down and in, so that now this line will continue on this side. So see how it's folded around? And now I get to do that the other way. And for some reason, it's always easier to do one side than the other. So we'll see. So now I'm going to start in the middle line again. And I'm going to go up and pass the line and out and near the top and then come back down. And I'm going to cross over to get back inside, because this is like a wrinkle, so it's okay if it gets inside of there. And then I'm going to start here and connect back up to there. Now, I imagine that the ears are probably going to be one of the more trickier parts of this picture. So even though I drew with pretty good pressure, I recommend you do a sketchy one so that you can erase easily if you get into a situation with your ears there. Baby ears are big, so imagine if you're a mom or dad, you want your youngster to listen to you, and that will help you understand that babies have really big ears when you're a baby deer. Okay, so you're going to get those on the large side, and I think I have all the parts, and I'm just going to erase my helping lines now. Okay, I erased all my helping lines, and I erased quite a lot of smudges. And then I also helped my face be slightly more symmetrical. So you might be able to see a ghost line there where I had drawn it a bit too wide on that side. I feel really happy about what I've done there. And you may be tempted to trace with the Sharpie right now, but please don't, because we need to draw these fun grasses. So this was a fun pattern that I wanted to teach you how to do. And that is these seed tops to these grasses. And so you'll notice that I'm not going to draw all of the grass because some of it is just going to be with oil pastel later. But the things that get outlined with Sharpie are the tops of the deer's body and the heads of grain on the grasses and the stems and leaves for kind of a few stars. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because odd numbers make for a better composition. So first off, in order to do this, I want to create a center for my grasses. So I'm going to have a really tall one over here, kind of a short one there, a tall one there, maybe an even shorter one there, a medium one there, a slightly tall one there, and a short one there. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 is enough on an 8x10 piece of paper. That's a good size. And that's going to be where those grasses are going to be, and it's going to be super fun. So they say repetition is how we learn best. So having 7 blades of seeded grass is going to help you learn this. It's going to look kind of funny at first, but I'm excited about it. It's pretty fun. All right, so at the top of your grass, so here's one of my grasses. We're going to start by the way, this is challenging, but I have confidence you can do it. We're going to do a zigzag. And my goal on the zigzag is to have triangles to the left and the right of my helping line that are about the same size, similarly sized. That seems good. And I'm going about 3 fingers down. So, all right, so that is step 1. And it doesn't hurt. We'll go ahead and just do that on all of them. Since that's a step, we'll just go ahead and include that step. And I will be really good at this by the time I get done with 7 of these. All right, there are my 7 zigzags across my lines. Now it just so happens that all of my zigzags start up at the right and go down to the left. I imagine that could be different if you're left-handed or if you just started off at the other side. But if you find that you're not on the downside, so for instance, if you're on the upside over there, if you wouldn't mind, for learning's sake, just adding a line to the right so that they are on the right, I think that'll be helpful for our steps. Okay, so did you know that long grain rice kind of grows like this? So I'd like for you to think about the seed or the rice or the grain of wheat or whatever that would be inside the seed, that it is long and narrow and will kind of like fit right in there. So I'm going to look at this one first, and I kind of want to ignore this line in the middle. So if you think it's helpful, you could kind of like de-intensify that, but I'm just going to not trace it later. That's how I'm going to handle it. So underneath, kind of following this line, I'm going to go under this line and put a long oval. So look, there's a grain of rice right there. Then I'm going to go under this line, but I'm using the line as part of it, and I'm going to go in this direction. And now I have a grain of rice going that way. And now I'm going to use this line and go that way. And then I'm going to go under the line and go that way. All right, so it's an oval. It's kind of long and skinny. It's very repetitive. It doesn't help that I use the same voice every time when I talk about this, but you get the idea. Okay, so when you get down to the bottom, that is all the different rices, grains kind of in that area. And I drew it a little on the large side because I want to be able to have some color in there, and that will be nice. And then there's usually kind of like a feathery line of something that kind of holds it so that it can catch the wind and blow, or birds can eat it. So they resemble kind of like letter 6s to me. See, there's the little strand of a fiber that kind of sticks up on the side. So there's my number 6, right? Okay. And then usually there's going to be just kind of one at the top of the head. So this one will be kind of more straight up and down. So that's kind of the top of it. I already have this line in place, so I just need to draw another line next to it so that it has a stem on it. All right, and we're going to do that for all of them, okay? So just to recap, this line is at the top. I'm going to turn that into an oval on the bottom. I'm also extending them a little longer. So notice that they get wider down, but they also get a little longer because I want them to stick out a bit. And one at the top, and then their little tendrils. Okay, so let's do that for all 7 heads of grain. Okay, we've got our grasses drawn, and I had fun doing that. That was a fun pattern. All right, so next there's a few leaves. So we've got the seeds at the top, the heads of grain at the top. We've got the stems, and now we're gonna do the little leaf. They kind of look like little flags that kind of hang off there. You can see periodically they're fun. They're kind of like banner flags. All right, and so they're gonna come off the sides of those. And remember, all these grasses and everything are in front of our baby deer, so you won't have to worry about x-ray vision later. Like the stem is in the front. So for instance, right here, this is in front and the deer is behind. So even when we do the grasses will be in front and the deer will be behind. So let's try not to put a leaf like right across her face or his face, okay? So we're gonna put in our leaves, kind of like little banners. They're long and pointy. And we can even do stems that the only job is to be an interesting leaf coming in front. You don't all have to be coming from that grain itself. So here we have some overlapping of the grass. So we do have to worry about x-ray vision when we do something like that. That was fun. It's kind of swirly. Imagine the wind kind of blowing them. Kind of like little arms. All right, that seems like a good amount. So just kind of put them wherever you want. They're long or skinny. They're not usually in pairs for this kind of grass. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I got an odd, even number. Oh, well, I could add one more. I'll just add one right here. There, that's fun. Okay. Now is the time to trace everything with Sharpie. Everything is all traced and erased. And notice my helping line got erased out of the middle of my grain of wheat. So I have 2 lines for the stem, but I only have those number 6s, and they're kind of joined by that zigzag we made. So the zigzag lasts and the line is gone now from out of those heads of grain. And when I colored the eye, I've got white, dark, and another white space. And I've got my house and my nostrils are colored. So I'm all ready to use the oil pastels. Okay, here's our drawing that we just did, and here's the one that I did earlier. And you can notice that I did get the deer a little closer up, a little larger. So both are good, both are favorites. And we're gonna start coloring, and I have the 16 color set, but if you have the 25 color set, don't worry, you have the same colors that we're gonna use today, whether you have the 16 or 25 color set. And I always like to start off with the color yellow first because it is the lightest and I want to get it in there first. I'm going to put just a dash of yellow, sounds like a recipe, doesn't it, on every single grass or seed head there. So I'm not coloring the whole amount. I'm pretty much putting whatever a line of yellow would look like in whatever shape that is. So for these seeds, a line of yellow pretty much fills up the whole space. And for this leaf, it's only part of it. So all of these grassy things, they just need one line of yellow in them. And I do that because yellow is very bright and it's going to stand up nicely against the purple watercolor dye that we stick on. So it's great to have it on there. And I'm using pretty firm pressure. So although it doesn't fill in all of the white spaces, where it is, it has a strong presence. So I have a stripe of yellow on all of the grasses that I've drawn here. I'm not going to include the yellow as grasses not drawn here, but yellow will have a job to do a little bit later on. But next we're going to switch to yellow-green. Now all the places that we have put yellow, we're going to kind of fill in any empty spots and kind of overlap a little bit with green because we want this to look like spring instead of harvest time. So if it was harvest, we would keep it more on the browns and tans. And because we have a baby deer, we need it to be more springtime. So everywhere you did yellow, you're going to put some of this yellow-green and be more intentional about filling the rest of the empty space where the yellow didn't make it. And if you didn't get yellow there before, it's not a big deal just to put green there. All right, so I have yellow and yellow-green on all the new grasses that I drew and have outlined with Sharpie. Now, about 1 inch to 1.5 inches at the bottom, I'm going to just kind of go on top and do light green, yellow green grasses in a row. They're closer together. I didn't need to be like super careful of my stems because these have yellow green on them too. So I've got kind of those grassy lines there. So that's all across the bottom and they're pretty much just vertical. Above the deer, so from the back up, I want to include some letter V's of grasses. So these are like towers of grasses that are growing in the distance. So think about like one of these farther away. And I'm using kind of like water spouting out of the top of a whale kind of a design to get those in place. And so they're more this way, that way, that way. And that's going to look nice to have those kinds of patterns. And I'm using good pressure on those. So you can see there's some little spaces in them, but good pressure still. And I'm not going to put any here on the deer's body in this area here. And I'm going to not get any on my ears because if one gets on my ear, then that's kind of an amazing flying blade of grass because we want it to look more like it's behind the deer's ear. Regular green, or the darkest green in the 16 color set, so it's just green. We're going to use this for some more line work to kind of help some of these stand out a little more. So you can see I'm going to do that 3 spout kind of look and maybe not have as many as the other, but it looks really interesting letter wise. And I'm going to include a little bit of these kind of behind in the vertical grass that I have down here. So it's not in front of the ones, but kind of in the back. Because remember, darkness creates depth or distance. So we want to create this kind of lush depth kind of look. And I'm trying not to get it on my deer itself. All right, so that was with pretty good pressure. You can see the edges, you can see the lines. And now I want to think about the top inch of this picture. And I'm going to use this green with gentle pressure to kind of fill in any white spaces, just that top 1/2 inch to 1 inch. So I'm not working my way down and I'm using very light pressure. So it kind of goes in those white spaces between those little grasses that we just drew. So this is not line work. This is more kind of fuzzy and see, just coloring, but very gentle. Since I've done that, I'm ready now to return to the yellow. The yellow is going to do something very similar to that. So where the dark green stopped, so I've got this space here, and before the light green hits, everywhere you see empty white spaces, I'd like for you to gently color with the yellow in these empty spaces. And you can see I'm not being super careful. I'm not going on my deer. I'm not going up here where the dark green is, and I'm not going down here where the vertical light green is. I'm staying in this middle area, but not on the deer, and just very gently doing a little coloring of yellow in those empty spaces. And that might not look like much now, but that's going to make for a really interesting background when we put the violet watercolor dye on there. So here you can see very light pressure and yellow. Van Dyke Brown is next. We want to use this to find dark areas on our baby deer. And I'm not going to be coloring with all my might in lots of places, but there are just certain places that we want a little bit of dark brown. So kind of up on these folds of his ears, kind of on the side of his head there above his brow. And you can see I'm not pressing with all my might here either. Just getting kind of like some fuzzy shades of it on there. And I'm going to do like a little fan kind of design on its little forehead. And it's going to have a little rectangle down the middle that kind of like a palm tree pattern. I am going to press on the hard side inside this house shape because that is the dark tone to its nose. And there is a dark stripe on the outside of these little lines that we drew. So we've got those in place. So there's a little pattern of brown there. And a little bit kind of on the side of his face, almost like a Magneto mask. But if you're not into superheroes and X-Men, you might not even know who Magneto is. But anyway, it's a mask. And then I'm going to come down and do a little shading here and here. And I want to find where my white spots on my fawn are going to be. And so I'm going to use this. I know they're all on the back and they're kind of headed in that direction. So I'm going to use this to draw the boundary around those white spots. So if you have more room than me, it's kind of like I'm drawing the shape of popcorn a little bit. There we go. Got all of those. And maybe I'll put one over here too. I know they don't really have them right here in the front of the neck, but kind of coming around. Okay, so I've got those little O's in place. And now down in the bottom, close to my grass, I'm going to color gently with some brown to show that not much light is getting down here on the bottom of our baby deer. It's in a shadow. And it's just going to kind of get lost in the grasses, and so we don't have to worry about those details down there. So that's kind of nice. Yeah, I am happy with that. Oh, we want to make the eyes brown. Now they're going to look very dark at this point, but just know something else is going to happen later. So I'm going to use some pretty good pressure, and it's going to make those eyes almost look black, but it's the brown in that empty white space. So you'll see what we do later. All right. That's the darkest color, so it's good to get those in place so we know where we're headed later. Okay, so orange is going to be how we brighten this little deer. So we're going to stick a little orange here and a little orange here. This whole forehead from here, kind of on our brown palm tree design at the top, gets to be all orange. And I'm going to blend it here together. So see, the brown and the orange mixes together to make the color that we're looking for. It was better to use these two colors than to try to use the one called brown, because it was too burnt sienna-esque. We needed it to be a little calmer than that. All right, and then I'm gonna put a little bit right next to his eyes here and here. Even though I didn't have the other brown there, and you'll see why in a minute. And a little bit there. Okay, and then I'm gonna travel right under, all the way over to here, and down, and over here, and there's still some white spots left because stuff is going to happen there too, so I know about that, so that'll be good. And then I'm going to skip down here because these places are going to have different colors, and get this color on the side of the neck. All right, and now I'm going to be really happy that I drew these circles because that's going to help me not put orange inside those circles. And so I'm going to go around the circles and go on the brown, but not all the way down. So I'm going to leave maybe a centimeter or a little less than a centimeter down of just brown and no orange. And everywhere higher than that is going to have orange right up to the edge so that we have those empty white holes for the deer's spots. I'll put a little orange on this ear. I forgot this ear over here. Okay, I like that very much. Next, a little bit of pink. So we want there to be like a bright pink right in the center area, not the whole part. So think about their little blood vessels in their thin ears, and they have that nice pink appearance in there. Okay, and that's all for pink. All right, so for the deer, one of the more helpful colors is going to be this peachy color called light orange. So really, orange plus white is all this is. And this is going to be really great for blending and getting in some light areas of fur on our deer. And so up here on our ear, we're going to just kind of blend and fill in this white area next to the pink, kind of blend in that orange and make it all smooth. And we'll do that on the other ear too. I really love how that mixes and blends. Okay, and then on top, above the eye, this is that light color fur above the eye on the brow bone. And we're even going to blend, this might be a little hard to see, but just below the Sharpie line at the top of the head, we're going to use this to blend so that it gets that brighter look to it right there. All right, under the eyes, we're going to blend. And these two lines right here beside the dark nose. So here and here. I'm going to go ahead and blend a little in that center area. And then we're going to get these cheeks, the cheeks on the left and the cheeks on the right. Now, I'm not going to color the chin and here and here and here with this color because I want it to be even more white than that. So I'm going to hold off on that. I'm going to blend a little bit of this orange about there and blend on these little turns where he's bending his neck to look behind. Okay. All right, that looks pretty good. Maybe I'll do a little bit on my fanning on my tree up here so it gets a little lighter. Okay. Yes. All right. Next, I'm going to use this yellow ochre color. So it's just called yellow ochre. It's like a brown yellow, a butterscotch color. It only has one job, but it's pretty important. So remember when we put that Van Dyke brown that's pretty chocolatey for the curves on the eyes here, for the brown eyes, and it's awfully dark. We want to try to do this with like one mark if we can. Kind of start at this end and do a curve to that end, like a letter U, and see how it makes those eyes just glow. It's like pretty awesome. So let's get that up there. So those colors mixed together makes that fun glowing eye look to it. Okay. All right. So that's all that color got to do. Well, I mean, it could be pretty fun. If you want, you can put a little bit of this kind of in the back in this middle area, because that could be awesome. I don't think we'll be sad about that. So sometimes you just go by what you feel. So I feel like that would be awesome. So we're going to stick that in there. Okay, cool. Next, we will get the white color. All right, so the white is going to go in these spots. And you'll know if you've gone there or not because it'll kind of mush the brown a little bit. And then her chest. Now, I have mixed feelings about the face because I don't want his mouth to go away and stuff. So I'm going to put a little spot on the eye to be a highlight. And then I'm going to get our colorless extender color because we got one of those that we used that to make the trees last month. And so we now all have an extender color. And the benefit of the extender color is when I color on something like this chin and these cheeks, I can still see my black Sharpie line through. It's not going to cover that up and mess that up. So that's kind of helpful. I could have used that for the eye even. Wouldn't have been bad. So sometimes it works a little bit better when I miss these little spots, so we'll compare and contrast. So sometimes it works a little better when you're going to use the watercolor dye on top. I will say I want to brighter highlight above his nose, so I'm going to get my white because I'd already colored peach there and do a little rainbow of white over there. I'm going to make this little brown part a little darker. So I've gotten my dark brown back again because I just think that looks better a little on the darker side. And now for the liquid watercolor. This is violet. In the past, we have used black, we have used brown, and right now we're on a purple kick. So you're just going to kind of put like 4 or 5 little splashes of that. And I have a sponge here, and I'm going to rub it around and try to go everywhere. It kind of looks like I'm putting grape jelly on my artwork, and it's still going to be great. So and I like to go in lots of different directions and make sure I go all the way to my tape. And it's good to have this one taped down because once it gets wet, it might curl. So this tape will help it not curl. And I like to use repetition to try to get that purple to be a bit darker. So, and then I'm going to take a paper towel and dry it off. Then I can look at it and decide if I want to go with a second coat of purple or if that looks good enough to me. That looks nice and bright. I like that. So I think I'm pretty happy. But there is paint on my sponge, so if I felt like I wanted a second coat, you can see the second coat, even after I dry it, gets it to be a little richer, a little deeper and darker. So that's just a tip we haven't done yet. And so drying in between layers can get it to be a bit darker. And I'm going to dry that all off. As soon as you've dried it, it's okay to take the tape off because there's no puddles. Then there's nothing to get where the tape is not. Move my tape low and at a right angle. Ta-da! Our very bright, cheerful, happy spring fawn. I love that. How look, I missed some spots with my white, but the purple looks cool in there, so it's all good. And then I really like how the purple plays in this orange up here to help with like some dimension in the fur. And you can see it kind of gets lost down in here. Let's compare and contrast. I think maybe I could have gone a little farther in with the dark brown and maybe a little brighter with the light green. So I kind of like how I have that darkness there. I do really like how that yellow ochre shows up in this background color, so I think that was a good choice. If your eyes don't seem like they show up very nicely, once you've done the whole thing with purple and dried it, you can get your black back and redraw any black areas that you'd like to show up more. So like the pupil, or any eyelash kind of thing, or even the smile if you want. The reason I wait till after I've blended it is for some reason the black is the messiest about smearing around with the sponge. So I don't like to have the black oil pastel on first. All right, I'm super happy. I hope you had fun, and I hope to see you at one of our meetups. Thanks, bye.